Okay, here we are. We've now done the belts. I apologize for the dubbing, but my microphone battery went flat partway through that recording and I hadn't realized. I was just chatting away, so I might be just using the recordings from my laptop microphone for that little bit. Anyway, so we've done all this. All the belts are tightened up and wound correctly. So now we're doing step 6, assemble linear bearings and Z-axis motor. And what you can see here are all the bits that we require. Actually, we don't need these yet. So we've got the 2 motors, we've got the screw nuts, the linear bearings. Oh, we do need these. 2 foot locks, 2 bearing seats. I've already put the T-slot nuts on them, and I've already put the T-slot nuts on these as well. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of those. So the 8 nuts are taken care of, the 8 screws are taken care of. So now we want the M3s, the M4s by 8 millimeters to screw all of these parts, so these pieces and these pieces, onto these plates. So let's get that done. So we got 2 of these. They're going to be exactly the same. The brass piece goes in the center. So I'll just pause the tape while I do the other one. Okay, that's all the pieces assembled. All the screws are put in. Let's go down here and see what else we need to do now. Okay, assembling the Z-axis motor component. So all the pieces we just assembled, we need 4 spaces in addition, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4. You need 4 M4 by 20s, and bearing seats we got, foot lock we got, and we got all the poles. I think these screws are for the end of the shafts here to screw it into the V-slots. So let's get the frame up here. I've got one of the axes near me. Let me just zoom out so we can see a little better. According to this, the motors will go on the bottom rail. The rods, get this out of the way a second, will go on through these holes and up in here once we have that on. But we need a few other things putting together first, like sliding the rails on. They go pole up or pole down, down towards the motor, so it's going to go that way. So we got the bottom of these at the bottom. So we'll gently push these rods through these the linear bearings. We really don't want to push out any of the bearings from in there. We need a threaded rod in here. these at the top here. Can't see it very well there, but up the top here, still need to adjust it. Hold on. A bit further out, I think, and up. There we go. So that's the rails there. We're going to put screws through the top. So do we use washers on those, or where do we put the washers? Thread the pole through the T-nut, connect the coupling holes on the motor bearings, seat the components, T-slot nut on the outer end, and then the Z-carriage is finished. Total 2 sets. When assembling, same as the illustration, but I don't see. The washers go under here. Okay. So we need to drop a screw, not that way, through the top hole here and into, I think I got too short a one. Didn't want 20s, I think these are 10s. Yeah, 10s. They're 10s, not 20s. Okay, let's try that again. And screw it in. Next. I won't bother recording the other side. One side is enough, the other side's going to be identical. And probably just as fun. Okay, so at the bottom we screw this down, but there are going to be some screws coming from the bottom as well, so I'll just take them gently till we can get them in. And then I will do the other side and come right back to you. So we've got the plates mounted, the bottom is not tightened up yet. The top screws are in here, but I forgot to put this bearing block on, so I've now added that. That supports the top of the lead screw, and I've put it in here loosely. Now a tip would be to wind this plate, let's bring it up a bit so it's in view, that's going to hold the gantry, sorry, it's going to hold the build platform. Wind it right up to the top, because the top of these linear rail rods are screwed in, so they're fixed. But you want to make sure that this is in the right place, otherwise it'll bind when it gets to the top. So what you can do is wind this all the way up, and if you start feeling it get a little tight, it's probably because this is not quite centered. So you want to get a little, there you go, so it moved a bit to the left. Now, well, you can slacken it right off and it falls right out. Let's just get that back in there again. Just get enough of a grip to... And we should be able to wind it all the way up, just to make sure it's in the right place. There we go. That's just now tweaked there. And we'll just wind it down a bit to make room for the screwdriver. And then we will just simply tighten it up. And now it should go right to the top without an issue. That's actually above the height of the head anyway, but we now know it's going to go up there no problem. So we'll just bring it back down again. And we'll go see what we have to do next. That's that pretty much done. Oh, we have to tighten the bottom screws up too. One of the things I found useful to do was to grab one screw. There's only, according to the plans, you only put screws in the top for these linear rails, steel rods. But if you put one just in the bottom, just to hold this in place, then you bring the platform down. Well, actually you don't even need to bring the platform down because these are fixed. Then you can tighten up these bottom brackets, the T-nuts, and know that it's going to be in the right place for when the bed comes down. There we go. So now you can take that screw back out again. It actually doesn't call for it, and I think you don't want it in there because it will actually pull this rod down and bend the extrusions, so they're held in place at the top, and the little washer, etc. So there we go. That's that section done. Now let's see what we have to do next. Okay, the next piece we got here is, let's have a look, assemble of feeding motor. Well, I believe that is already done for us. Here it is. This is already completely assembled, so there's nothing to do. Wish they took the paper off it before they did it, but they didn't. That's fine. Anyway, don't care about the paper being on there. That's our extruder. So, ready to go. That's one piece. I think that's everything except for 2 T-nuts for mounting it somewhere and 2 screws for the T-nuts. So that would be probably those, or shorter. Okay, so we've got 2 screws, 2 T-nuts. Everything else is all part of the main assembly, which is already done. So we clag it onto the printer. So where's the front? Okay. So this is the front of the printer. This is the right hand side. And it looks like, according to that, we put it in the corner over there, over here, next to the motor. Yep, but just below it. So we're going to put it over here. So we have to put it on there. According to this, I'm sure it probably, as long as it reaches, it doesn't matter what side you actually put it on, but we can do that. Okay, so on the outside, that's right, because the Bowden tube would go up, so it's going to mount right on here. And we'll give it a little bit of space just for nicety's sake. So that's the Bowden tube, sorry, the extruder on. The next piece now is assemble the printer platform. So we need, just put this to the side slightly, need 2 platform rails, we need the tow line bracket, and it's this piece here, the heated bed, that's in here. Now, the heated bed is actually, I've seen a couple of videos and people were complaining about the heated bed and just coming with a piece of paper, but it looks like they've sent a nice surface to use for this. And underneath that we have what looks like a piece of phenolic or something. It's got a couple of little dings in it, but that's okay, to act as an insulator. And then we have the actual heated bed, which has got some green plastic on, so that'll have to come off. Which is your standard 300 millimeter heated bed. It's actually 330 by 330, but the heated area is 300 by 300. Already got the wiring pre-attached, so that's what we're going to be using for this. So we'll put these 2 pieces away. That looks like a nice build surface. I'm not sure what it's got in it, but it could well be PEI material perhaps. It's got an adhesive backing on it. It's certainly meant to be a permanent surface, not one of these blue tack things or blue tape that you then take off and get rid of after just a, 1 or 2 things. So that's good. Anyway, so what else do we need? The frame, which you've got that. M3 by 10 screws, 2 of them, and 6 springs. And it looks like we've got 2 spares. Oh, they're for something else, but either way. some wing nuts, screws M3 by 30s. I think these are 30 long, 10, and the heat bed has got countersink on. That makes sense with these. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of those. Is it 6? Yep. 6 M3 nuts. We've got a bunch of those here. And it looks like for now that is it. So let's move down a little bit further. Okay, so they want us to screw the 2 rails to the heated bed first with wing nut springs, washers? Ah, no. Nuts. Let's just move this out of the way a second. Starting to get a little heavier. Okay. So here's the heated bed. So we'll turn that over. Let's take the plastic off of here. We certainly don't want that melting when it heats up. Okay. So, first things first, these countersunk screws are going to go through with a nut on the back, according to that. So we'll lay this down. Got to be careful because the wires are pre-attached and soldered on quite heavily. If you do have a heated bed, I have one downstairs that's exactly this model for the printer that I'm building, and we have to solder it. But of course, with a massive heatsink like this, big piece of aluminum, it takes a powerful soldering iron to be able to get that on there, which is probably why they've done it ahead of time. There's also the components for a couple of LEDs by the look of it. This is a 12 volt only heated bed. I think the one I have downstairs has got 12 or 24. I'll have to double check it. Anyway, for this to heat up, it takes a lot of power. That's why we have a 30 amp power supply. Everything else is very limited compared to this. So anyway, springs pop over the screws. So this bed has 6 adjustment points, which makes it a little more awkward than your usual bed for leveling. Make sure these are straight because they seem to be make sure I get them the right way. There's a bunch of extra holes at one end of these. And of course, you put it on the wrong way around, then you're going to be fighting with, doesn't actually show. Looks like this goes on to 2 of the screws once the bed's on. So let's get this. Yeah, looks like cable management or something, or a limit switch. Anyway, let's get these on there. The wing nuts, we're jumping ahead of ourselves. Okay, that's the build plate screws all put in. Now we have the little tab. So according to this, it sticks on the right hand side on these 2 holes right there. So that's going to be a couple of these small screws. This is the one 3D printed piece in all of this 3D printer that I can see. Okay, so looks like that's that piece. Now we've got to go to the, oh no, let's go across here, hold on, forgot. Gotta put it into the frame. So let's just move this out of the way a second. Lift the frame up and get it put in. So this right hand side over here, that's the front of the printer. So we want the cables coming out the back and the sides. Which way is this going to go? This goes to, where's the extruder? Over there. So that's going to go this way. Same corner as the extruder. Yep, there we go. Now that hangs, looks like, underneath those. Yeah, it looks like it hangs underneath these brackets, not on top. They're threaded as well. So that would make sense for that. So let's just screw those in and then we'll continue. I'll just screw them in, clear the bench, and then we'll move on.